Chapter 193, June 1872. Of all the major industries that graced the humble city of Marquette, none were more emblematic than the designing and making of weapons of war. Eagle, Illinois Guns of Liberty, had claimed the position of crown jewel of the American military engineering business. It had kept this title through a combination of reliability, excellent supply lines, and an ability to streamline any design they came across. The Illinois Guns of Liberty could be found in the hands of infantrymen as it had during the war, but also equipped private security companies, Pinkerton detectives, and all manners of discerning individuals. Contrary to most of its competitors, Eagle had thrived in the post-war crunch. Its founders had used their profit to diversify their activities. Eagle had contracted with grace to match the rarer orders, only to bounce back with more vigor like a gunpowder phoenix rising from the ashes of peace. Now, the forges belched out black smoke in turn with falling hammers. Deadly contraptions emerged from its maw, contained in crates stamped with the eagle of its crest. Eagle was Marquette's largest employer, and its roaring fires never cooled. Despite Eagle's respectability, there were some questions as to the nature of its engineering department, as well as the strange materials they seemed to work with. Certain rumors of witchcraft and curious pursuits titillated the curiosity of the town's gossips. It was said that they were working on ships, even though the closest body of water lay far to the north. Those rumors were left to run amok for a good reason. As in most cases, they were a lure, a smokescreen to divert the attention of the hoi polloi from the true enigma. Situated behind the factory wall on a small hillock, the Raynaud family estate occupied a modest stretch of ground in wood, to the uninitiated, appear as nothing more than a Gothic revival estate designed for a large family. Its facade showed arched windows painted white, pink brick walls hidden coquettishly behind rigorously maintained hedges. Flowers were rare, and so were the guards, though an imposing wrought iron gate blocked the main entrance. A more astute observer would have noticed that the house came to life at night while most of the company's activities were winding down. Maybelle worked there as a receptionist. Now, there were quite a few anomalies in this house, not least the death of its famed founder some 30 years before the company's official incorporation. A massive painting of Hercule Raynaud greeted visitors with a fatherly, warm smile. It was quite recent, yet felt almost lifelike. No, indeed, discretion was the better part of valor for most employees. Maybelle had never hoped for such good employment as a single, unwed mother despite her training, and she never would find one again if she lost it. Similarly, Hortensia Staunton from accounting was on the run from a jealous and violently separated husband, while Glenn Jefferson was wanted for murder in Virginia. She knew it because Mr. September had left his memo open on his desk while she was bringing him an order to sign. Everyone working at the estate had reason to stay here. Quietly. This led to the most polite and soft-spoken environment Maybelle had ever worked in, which suited her just fine. The employees kept quiet about the woman, her strange comings and goings, her mysterious gifts and other, stranger details. In return, they thrived under her black wing, left to enjoy their second chance at life in a world that would see them crushed. The woman, whom her colossal bodyguard called Misery, but everyone else called Miss Raynaud, showed unerring respect, and her requests were always reasonable. Maybelle was more than willing to excuse her peculiarities for those reasons, and also because she was terrifying. Maybelle was reasonably certain others had noticed. When Miss Raynaud walked around, sometimes, the walls would rustle. Her comings were heralded by a strange chill crawling up the spine of her attendants. She was unreasonably strong as well, sometimes picking up samples or interesting metal pieces with inhuman ease, while at other times she would pretend to struggle. Like the others, however, Maybelle would not lift the mask to see what hid under. She knew witchcraft was involved. She also knew that looking deeper might cost one more than their lives. No, the Raynaud estate would stay polite and peaceful. At least from internal disruptions. A chime rang from Maybelle's desk, rousing her from her distraction. The sun had set, letting the August night dispel the day's stifling heat. She grabbed the copper horn hanging near the wall and spoke into it. "This is reception speaking. Mrs. Starr, hello, whose child is currently asleep in the south wing guest room?" "Wallace's, miss. The new hire." "And where is she right now?" "Undergoing training with Mr. Jefferson." "Inform them the child needs changing. There is no need to alter their schedule further, however. And do we have an update on the Lynn contract?" "I'll bring it to you immediately, miss." Maybelle picked the prepared file and walked the stone stairs to the second floor, where the strange woman's palatial office was located. Her brand-new leather loafers sank in the lush carpet with every silent step. Mr. Doe stood at the top, his attention focused on what appeared to be a primer on the Finnish language. He nodded at her in passing, as he always did. As usual, she held her breath when entering the last corridor until she was certain no one could hear her, and as usual, Miss Raynaud spoke as Maybelle's hand approached the polished wood of the door, but before she could knock. "Come in." The strange woman's desk occupied almost all of the space from wall to wall, cutting the large room in half like the world's fanciest barricade. Sober carvings decorated its surface, while gas lamps cast a warm glow over the rare wood essences. Shelves occupied the far wall, some holding books, others files of recent projects. They were only half full as their contents were regularly archived to avoid cluttering. Miss Raynaud did not like cluttering, as her desk surface confirmed. The woman herself sat in her chair, holding a small telegram. One of her brows arched imperiously in a gesture that did not quite fit her youthful features. With her poise, she possessed an ageless quality that made receiving orders from her less grating to the more traditionally minded employees. Maybelle wordlessly placed her folder in the receiving rack and stood, waiting to be dismissed. The strange woman balled the message and tossed it in her bin. Her expression had returned to polite neutrality. "I am informed that we should expect guests belonging to law enforcement soon. Please direct them to my office as soon as they arrive. Thank you." "Understood, miss." Maybelle returned to the reception. She spent the next hour scheduling appointments and checking inventories. The expected visitors showed up a little later. The first was a handsome young man with hard features. He entered with vigilant eyes and a hand on his holster, from which a metal handle emerged. A cross hung from his neat tie. Maybelle surveyed the newcomer with distant interest, noting the double-barreled coach gun strapped to his back. Two older fellows in dusters followed soon after with guarded airs, weapons on display. They approached her as if expecting her to bite. She expected bank robbers to show less nervous energy. "We're here for Raynaud," the lead man threatened. "Of course. Take the stairs to your right to the second floor, then it's the large room at the end of the corridor." The man blinked. Maybelle blinked with as much exaggeration as she thought she could get away with. "Was there anything else?" she asked coyly, but the man was already gone with his two partners in tow. Maybelle resumed her work. The vampire felt the men arrive when spheres of denial appeared in her magna arca, bubbles of existence that refused her own, protected by their faith in something greater than themselves, and her. Her bodyguard had pulled back for now, leaving the men to trail dust on the expensive carpet. They filed in fearfully, weapons drawn, crosses revealed. The vampire placed her elbows on the desk and rested her head on her balled fist, looking at the intruders with detached interest. "You are Ariane, the Red Maiden?" the handsome young lad asked. He smelled of delicious terror mixed with courage, a true hero facing impossible odds. And those were impossible odds. "I have been called that, yes," the vampire replied with a half-smile to three gun muzzles. "You'll be coming with us." The vampire lifted a finger. A small ball of steel smacked into the man's revolver, tearing it off his hand. He yelped in pain when his knuckle cracked as well. The same fate befell the other two men as well, with such speed that the swear words covered each other. The attack had been sudden and devastating, and the would-be hunters were left holding their broken digits. The scent of fear increased. The vampire stood up, and the door slammed shut behind the three men. She walked around her desk with slow purpose, coming to stand in front of her guests. Her voice never abandoned its polite, descriptive tone. "Hypothetically, if I were to stand in an empty room made of enchanted steel with a single exit you could block, three men could indeed neutralize me. I would be backed into a corner, so to speak, but this situation will never arise." The vampire extended a hand, and the man's revolver jumped into it. She twirled it for effect. "The purpose of the cross is not to make you invincible, but to offer a safe haven. That is why it makes for a poor offensive tool. So long as you stay home and pray, we shall never visit you, but the moment you step into the night with a weapon in your hand is the moment you forfeit the protection neutrality afforded you. Why did you not attack during the day?" The men kept silent, glaring at the ground and at each other with the embarrassment that comes with a swift defeat. "Answer me," the woman hissed. The crosses flashed blue and the men signed themselves. One of them retreated to the door, only to find that it would not open. The vampire grinned. She cocked her borrowed gun. One of the men gave in. "We know you cannot be found during the day. No one can see you. And there are too many guards." The vampire frowned at the thought of a leak, then reconsidered. She was a well-known, if mysterious, quantity in Marquette. The noisest gossips had already drawn a parallel with Miss Delaney, who had led the Dream in its heydays, and reached an unfortunate conclusion. Such was the price of hands-on management. "There are three reasons why you still live," she said. "First, killing law enforcement is infinitely more problematic than killing a nobody. Second, I do not want blood and brain matter on my brand new shaggy rug. Third, you were so hilariously incompetent I am more amused than vexed. You have two choices. You can leave by this door and never bother me again, or—" Darkness crept in the corners of the room. An unnatural chill spread through the air, freezing the men's breath in their throat. Their visions narrowed to a corridor, and at the end of that tunnel was a cold presence, purple iris slitted with cat-like, baleful pupils. "I will shred your souls and drain your life force like a fine wine, and then, I will kill you." The men had not signed for eternal damnation. They took a collective step back. "I thought not," the woman said. The door banged open and they ran away. The vampire sighed in relief. And Tsukumhayatu, the tall one, almost soiled himself. She grumbled and inspected the threshold, her toes sinking in the fluffy fabric. Satisfied that no irreparable damage had been inflicted and it was not too dusty, she returned to her paperwork, signing spending bills and inspecting diagrams of what appeared to be a large ship. Or perhaps a hot air balloon. An hour later, she contacted the reception once more. "Maybelle, I do not see the report on the Indian Territories trade route. Where is it?" "Ah, sorry ma'am, Analyst Briggs said he needed one more day because some of the reports were late. He has provided an outline of the situation. It's in the sector report folder. Thank you. Oh. Your order has arrived, ma'am. From France. The Berthe Morisot? The painting? I will be right down. The vampire hummed a horribly off-tune little jig and put on some moccasins. She made her way down to the reception, where the cylinder encasing her prize in a protective embrace awaited. She unsealed and opened it with dexterous excitement. Maybelle leaned in and caught a glance. The painting appeared to depict a port with a couple at the forefront. Masted ships waited, moored in the distance. She squinted and realized the lines were a little blurred, the colors strange and fleeting. It was a far cry from the realistic landscapes lining the wall. Concern filled her heart, but the strange woman smiled fondly, revealing, for an instant, teeth that were perhaps a little too sharp. Maybelle noted the strange Miss Raynaud seldom displayed emotions, yet now covetous greed gave her cold beauty a strange animation. After a while, she deftly rolled the painting back and replaced it in its sheath. Have it framed and brought to the exhibition hall. I do not need to remind you of the rule. No one enters without your express consent. We will leave it in the lockbox, as usual. Ma'am. Good. Well, back to it I suppose. Ta-ta. Maybelle nodded politely and watched the young woman's blue dress swish as she walked. Shaking her head, she focused on her next task. Asterisk. The vampire returned to her desk, still humming with contentment. Paperwork disappeared with commendable speed. Sometimes, she would call down to request a specific document from the archive or send orders that could not be delayed. Her outbox collected notes filled with carefully written cursive. Suddenly, she froze. Then she blinked very slowly. 10 seconds later, the chime near her copper horn rang softly. Ma'am, we have an intruder near the east wall. Your security thing made a sound. It appears to be a young man with a backpack. I see. If he makes a move towards the entrance, apprehend him. Otherwise, just keep an eye on him. I want to know what he plans to do. The vampire sat back and waited. Sometimes, her eyes would travel down as if she could see through the thick walls. Eventually, she stood and huffed a little laugh. Well, you are quite the little monkey. She went to the nearest window. Suddenly, branches of pure darkness dotted with white flowers appeared out of nowhere. They parted to let the statue of a man in armor out. It rolled the precious carpet out of the way and disappeared just as it had come. In the silent room, there was a loud thud. The strange noise was quickly followed by a muffled curse, then another lesser thud. Wards shone softly around the reinforced frame. The vampire sprang in motion. She opened the window, pushing aside the man who had tried to break in. She grabbed his wrist before he could fall back down and pulled them in bodily. Her visitor swore as he crashed on the varnished hardwood. The man was young, muscular and tan. His clothes were worker garb, dark to fit in, and covered in sewn pockets. Surprise marred his handsome, honest traits. The vampire noted the acrid stench of garlic. He scrambled to his feet and opened his backpack with movements panic made feverish. The vampire politely waited with a hand supporting her elbow, the other tapping a clawed finger on her chin. The intruder finally revealed his target, a rolled bundle of dynamite. The vampire's brows rose. You can't get away with it, he blurted. Grasping in his pocket, he found a matchstick. This did not seem to bother the vampire. I am afraid you might have to be more specific, she said. What? There are many things I intend to or have already gotten away with. You need to name which specific occurrence of me getting away with things you are referring to. You stole our land. You poisoned the well and killed the kettle, only to buy it for a joke of a price. You think you can just take our home? I'll take yours too. With a terrible rictus of unbidden rage, the intruder brushed the red tip against his boot end. Nothing happened. With a puff of cold air, whatever fragile ember had started to form died a lonesome, pathetic death. The intruder appeared a bit aghast, but another match soon joined the first on its path to incandescence with the exact same result. Panic replaced fury in his expression. The vampire had not moved. After the fourth attempt, cold sweat covered his face. The vampire, however, reached a conclusion. She headed back to her office and sat, writing a quick note. "Name and address, please." "What?" A breath later, the temperature plummeted. The intruder heard a sigh and watched the monster in the skin of a young woman massage the bridge of her nose, a human gesture performed with a clawed hand. "Are you hard of hearing or just dense? Your name and address, boy, what are they? If one of my employees has been overzealous, I want to know about it." "Why do you care? You're a monster." "Because," the woman patiently explained, "I have no need to create grudges and deep resentment over business when the long-term cost is that young men attempt to break into my place of work at 11 in the evening, carrying dynamite instead of flowers." There was a lull in the conversation, but then the man frowned. He fiddled with the cross hanging from his neck, surprised that it had not stopped her from grabbing his wrist. His suspicion grew. "You just want to go after my family." "I swear that this was not my intention. However, you are free to decline. I suppose we should resume our previous business and address your invasion of my private property and your threats against me?" she asked, picking up an elegant revolver with a pearl handle from a side drawer. The man considered his options. The Lord protects me." "Has your faith made you bulletproof? Let us put it to the test." "Wait." To his surprise, she did. "Wait. Are you really the monster behind AJourn? Is that you?" "Yes. Do you need my signature to prove it? The company's seal?" No, this is quite sudden and unexpected. You are playing tricks with me, foul monster." His heart was not into it. The vampire tutted. "Language, please. I believe I am already being quite understanding. No need to test my patience further. Now, please state the address of the house that was stolen from you. At least." "My family farm. Near Rushville. We don't live in a city, it's just the old Adams estate. I'm Roger Adams. Folks around us know about it. They know we were done dirty by some city fellers." The woman tapped her finger on the wood of her desk, the tick-tick-tick playing with his nerves. "Schuyler County, was it? I will verify your claims. If you are correct, your property will be returned. I understand the concept of home more than most people, I assure you." "Is this real? Not some lies to get rid of me?" "Mr. Adams, do you sincerely believe I need to expend any effort to get rid of you?" She tapped on the revolver to make a point, but the man suspected there was more to it. She had not been afraid even before she got a hold of the gun. He remembered the way his matches failed. The truth was that he had no weapons left, except a stake hidden in his back pocket and a knife. He had counted on the threat of explosives to be enough, and perhaps he should have planned this with more care. So focused on getting in, he had neglected to prepare what to do once he had achieved that goal. It felt stupid in retrospect, but he had been so angry. "No. Are you speaking the truth about getting our house back?" If you have told the truth, then yes. The perpetrator will also be disciplined. I provide incentives for the acquisitions of key properties across the state. Financial incentives. I also impose rules and guidelines. If someone broke my directives out of greed, there will be consequences. The intruder thought the woman used a lot of what his sister called euphemisms. She said it was when you say something soft that means something hard. He thought consequences here didn't mean what most folks meant. The woman finished her note, then placed it on the table where it sat there waiting with the tantalizing promise of justice accomplished. She entwined her fingers in front of her and asked him a question. Do you know what I am? The intruder hesitated, thinking he could still die. Eventually, his honest nature pushed him away from the easy lie. I think you're a vampire. Is that so? And why do you believe that? My family, they said only a monster could do that to us. When I learned those fellas that harassed us were from over here, I asked about you, and also my sister has that book about fantastic creatures of the world. Says a lot about pretty folks who come out at night. Is that why you stink of garlic? That's right. The book said it would help. It does not, does it? No. Damn that liar. This Simon, Sinead. The name was barely whispered, and yet it carried with it impressions, feelings. For a moment, the one light of a nearby lamp gained a golden quality and the air smelled sweeter. The intruder got an inexplicable vision of eyes like amber, a devastating smile, the taste of wine on his lips. And also, a vision of a very erect penis. It was an extremely disturbing experience. Yeah. Simon Mead. That man. He gulped. Can I go now? Oh yes, let me help. The vampire stood and moved to the window once again. She opened it, giving the intruder a vision of a nearby fountain near the main entrance. That should be fine. She placed a hand on his shoulder and gripped. His cross shone blue and she lifted an index in warning. He raised his hands in surrender. He did not know how, but this affected the object, which lost its radiance. Well, Roger Adams, I cannot say that it has been a pleasure. Next time you have a complaint, use the damn door. Now kindly show yourself out. Next, he was flying through the air. Gravity and panic gripped him. He flailed his arms in vain before landing face first in the shallow pool. He managed to twist himself, hitting hard stone with his shoulder. The shock made him gasp. The cold water jolted his mind. He surfaced, breathing quickly, his heart beating against his chest. He wiped the liquid from his face. He was in the fountain. Alive. The window slammed shut behind him. A click to the side attracted his attention. A man wearing a crimson uniform under a Stetson sniggered, his hand resting on an engraved rifle. He had just unlocked and opened the main gate. Their presence told him all he needed to know. She had seen him coming and allowed him to do so. He scrambled out of the fountain and advanced, dripping, through the exit. As he ran, he noticed a short blonde woman with a muscular build under a similar crimson uniform. He had not noticed her until now. She growled softly when he ran by. Terror and relief fueled his flight. He ran until he found his room in a nearby hotel and spent the night awake with the lights on. Asterisk. Maybelle did her best to focus on the expense sheet in front of her. Sadly, she was too curious about the intruder. She could not help but wonder what they were here for. Was this a burglary? Spying? A scorned lover? She burned to know. Then, it started with a light tremor in the house's foundation, a vibration of sorts. Maybelle braced and covered her ears. The voice of Miss Raynaud was soft, yet it carried through the walls with unnatural clarity. It started with a string of expletives in some language she did not know, then French curses peppered the unholy mix. Eventually, it was in English that the eruption took place. I have been exceedingly patient and I have not shed the blood of those brainless twits, and so I deserve some comfort. Maybelle grabbed the copper horn. A moment later, the chime rang. This is the reception. Mrs. Starr. Can I have a coffee please? Blend number 5 with some cream and no, make that 2 sugars. Have Mr. Jefferson prepare it please. Thank you. A long one, miss? Yes. And get the office of the architect to get me a proposal for a tower. 7 floors at least, with a large basement. And the office on the top floor. Gargoyles. The works. Understood. Maybelle hung up and raced the majordomo. 7 minutes later, he walked by her at a brisk pace with a silver platter in his hands, trailing the enticing smell of a perfect roast behind him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Ariane aspired to some respite after being intruded in her sanctum not once but twice in the span of a few hours. Restraining specific instincts had become incredibly hard since the dragon hunt, especially those that related to territory. If anyone had dared enter her private, special collection of paintings and art, she would have just dismembered them where they stood. As it was, it had taken all of her self-control not to bite the idiots. She raised the cup to her lips. Cream altered the taste greatly, especially to her enhanced senses, and yet there was a smooth quality to the sweetened coffee that brought balm to her irritated mind. A few sips later, she felt better. That was when the screams started. The vampire stayed perfectly unmoving as cries and chants grew in volume until the words were clear to all but the most hard of hearing. No more gin, drink water, close the pubs and stay sober. The sentence was repeated ad nauseam by distinctly female throats coming from the gate. Ariane placed the half-empty cup in its decorated saucer. Outside of her property, a group of women had gathered in conservative dresses waving around signs and banners. There must have been 24 of them, and they seemed agitated. Ariane came to a quick conclusion. Tonight is Thursday. The Temperance League holds its weekly meeting, the vampire idly commented. It was well known that Idle owned and regulated the town's brewery to contain the endemic spread of alcoholism which now affected most of the United States. The Temperance League were merely complaining directly to the owner. Ariane placed her hands on the window stool, resting her head against the cold glass. The human lord was testing her. The problem was that she had been forsaken by said lord long ago, and really, that was a little too much. In the middle of her coffee. Sacrilegious, even. She returned to her cup, but the relaxation that came with the ritual had been broken. You know what? Fine. Fine. A chime later, she had Maybelle Starr on the horn. Reception here. We have manure, right? From the stables? Consternated silence met her question, though the girl recovered quickly. Yes. We do. Excellent. Have a boy race and fetch me a large bucket. To your office, miss. Over my carpets? Have you lost your senses? No, have them meet me by the fountain. I will be right down. And tell them to hurry, my patience is wearing thin. Grumbling, Ariane put on her moccasins, again, and walked down, again. It was dark in the inner court, so the protesters did not spot her. She could see them and realized in a calmer part of her mind that they would pay for everyone else's behavior. She also knew she did not really care. A sleepy stable lad rushed by her side, the required bucket held in a strong grip. The container looked heavy, and its payload let out an acrid stench. Good. Place it here. On the ground, ma'am. Yes, and step back. The lad did so. In an instant, a root erupted from the ground and seized the bucket. It snapped forward like the arm of an ancient siege weapon, catapulting its nasty content across the courtyard. Some of it splattered on the metal frame. More found the dresses, exposed skin and singing mouths of the protesters. Atrocious screams and terrible wails replaced the slogans. Their misery drowned the street with a terrible din. The abused troop retreated in poor order, leaving behind discarded hats and abandoned umbrellas soiled with excrement. The root disappeared as if it had never existed. Only the discarded bucket remained, a mute witness to the terrible crime that had occurred. Near the gates, the female sentry gagged. Her male counterpart sighed and left to fetch a shovel. "Kill one, warn 100, the vampire soberly commented. Nodding to herself, she left for the tranquility of her art collection, knowing that if anyone came to bother her, Pookie would get an extra meal. Chapter 194. You know, if you wanted to remodel the place there were better ways, I idly remark. Meluson's face twists with rage. You jest? A third of my warehouses went up in flames and you jest? Do you know how much time and money I lost? Do you comprehend that your own bottom line will be impacted? Financially as in life, I am confident with my bottom line. I would never invest most of my assets with a firemage anyway. Of course. A tragedy. Chicago shall never be the same, I comment. It will not because 3 square miles have gone up in smoke. 100,000 people are homeless. But there is a silver lining, I point out. All those slums can be replaced with brand new buildings of much better quality. Parks, even. And the smell would be much improved. Ariane, it was warm, dry, and windy for a long time. I know what you are trying to do and you are being silly. Childish. It was a terrible accident. Preliminary reports say a cow did it. Yes, a cow did it, I reply without concealing my smile. The question is, did she use fiery bolt or inferno? I let Meluson scream incoherently for 30 seconds before cutting the communication. Pleasure is all well and good, but I have work to do. The demonstration is about to begin. I must monitor the situation although the sun is out, and I am a prisoner in my own quarters. Another spell and I get a blurry vision of an open field not too far from the Boston fortress where I currently reside. A helpful assistant has the dubious honor of carrying a silver plate in front of him for the entire day, despite the sweltering heat of summer. Curse summer. Curse the summer solstice most of all. I cannot stop myself from sticking my nose to the metal surface of my scryer, even though the quality of the image does not depend on my own senses. Loth stands in the distance, looking regal in a beautifully made beige suit. He smiles genially at the sweating patent officer and assembled army officers. Their medals and decorations shine in the sun almost as much as their brows. I know for a fact Loth keeps a cooling steel plate stuck to his hairy back to handle the unbearable heat, the sly old dog. I sit back and wait for the show to begin. The dragon vision was clear to me. I still have several decades before Nirari finally backs Semiramis into a corner. I would not say that time is on my side since her loss remains inevitable and I will have to intervene, however I have no reason to rush the final confrontation. There are still ways for me to grow more powerful and to add new tools to my arsenal while Nirari has already reached the peak of his power. My options are diplomatic, technological, and the last is a special project I started before freeing the Fae. As much as it annoys me, the world is also filled with threats against me and my allies. The major players will not show the basic decency to wait until I rid them of a world-conquering tyrant before shoving a spike in my heart, therefore measures are required. I need to build up my forces. Fortunately, I enjoy doing that immensely. Loth smiles in harmony with my own pleasure. He widens his arms in benevolent welcome, a show considering his size. Welcome, gentlemen, welcome to the first demonstration of the unthinkable. For the first time in the history of mankind we touch upon the true dream. Not a controlled fall, not floating at the mercy of the wind. I am talking about the holy grail of modern engineering, man-powered flight. I wanted to put woman-powered flight on the patent, but the old burger refused, using my own weakness against me, the rules of language. He said that if I would not tolerate the utterance of the despicable term of okay anywhere on my compound, I would certainly not allow my own patent to break the laws of grammar. Curse him and curse semantics. We have not come here for snaky oil speeches, Mr. Scragg, was it? The man who spoke is a reed-thin gentleman with a ruddy face despite his bookworm physique. Scaled glasses rest on a thin nose, while he keeps in his hand a worn leather case. Except for him, everyone wears the blue of the army. Yes, the old warrior replies with a slight Nordic accent. He decided to shelve the Scottish brogue for the occasion and for respectability, though it still surfaces when he swears. His new position demands it. My name is Loth Scragg, head of Scragg Heavy Industries. Our prototype is named the Prometheus, and it was designed at the behest of Illinois Guns of Liberties, in collaboration with their engineering department. The patent includes both of us. I have not come here for a history lesson, mister. If you will excuse us, a colonel with a long brown beard and pale eyes interrupts. The patent officer sighs but complies. Please, continue. Although the Prometheus is a Swedish-American partnership, the plants and factories are all hosted on American soil. I have no need to explain how momentous this is. You explain much, but I have yet to see any sign of a flying device. Loth grins and points up. On cue, the roar of an engine comes to life and rotors turn to move the air. A shadow falls upon the assembly. A hull with a flat bottom descends like a bird from heaven, side sails turned in the wind. Its shade covers the waiting group. The witness's flabbergasted expression is positively precious. Hiding a ship in a cloudless sky can be difficult, if one forgets that the sun exists and that no one stares at it willingly. The Prometheus is not a proof of concept as most new designs are. It is a fully functional ship capable of flying at a height of 1,000 feet and an autonomy of 800 miles at the moment. It can host a crew of 25 and bears 4 light cannons aiming down. As a Navy ship, it would do a decent job patrolling the coasts for smugglers. As a sky ship, it bears a distinct advantage. No armies of the world can reliably take down a moving, plated target 1,000 feet above their heads. It, however, can hit them just fine. The plate bearer turns the mirror to show the Prometheus land in all its glory. 2 of the officers fall on their posteriors and clamber back, their eyes wide as saucers. The ship comes to rest with a light thud while red-clad sailors lower the gangplank. The Prometheus is flat-bottomed so it can rest on both land and seas, but not properly sail on anything too agitated. The decision came out of a joint accord. It pains me not to have a flying and seaworthy ship now that Pookie guards my precious hoard, I mean, my art collection, however the result is worth it. I can be patient. Really. The world has not seen the end of the dread pirate. While I entertain the thought of a flying ship of the line, the officer and patent office agent have recovered enough to gather the shreds of dignity they still have. Loth walks them patiently around the ship, unveiling its attributes while a hired photographer captures the moment with his annoying contraption. Soon, they board the Prometheus with various levels of courage, and the ship takes off. The plate holder has come aboard despite the limited space. The ship will not go very high, nor will it travel very far, only to appear where it will settle under the amazed eyes of the populace. I hum a little tune under my breath as the inspectors stick to the railing with hilariously fake nonchalance. Loth spoon feeds them anecdotes, knowing well they will barely remember their conversation. After a flight of half an hour at a decent speed, the ship flies low over the streets of Boston. A gasping crowd trails our prototype with excitement until it lands in the harbor. Mass production can begin immediately. We have several models to choose from, and we hope the Army will consider our creation's remarkable potential. A ship like the Prometheus can strike anywhere unimpeded, travel as fast as a running horse, and shoot without being shot at. It is as much a revolution as modern logistics was. The Prometheus will revolutionize the way we wage wars, gentlemen. You can count on it. And now, if you will excuse me, I have to greet your compatriots. Loth steps on the railing with a sound amplifier of his own design. His rumbling voice rolls over the calm waves like an avalanche, as unstoppable as the march of progress. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the year of our Lord 1872. Welcome to the future. Asterisk. While Loth and the more business-oriented members of the Accords manage the development of the airship project, I focus on one of the greatest challenges we will have to solve if we want to keep living under the glowing light of gas lamps, that of photography. Indeed, with every major event attracting the presence of picture-takers, we will soon be forced to shun major public events or have people wonder why all their cameras only catch a blur. Unfortunately, the very idea of stabilizing our image poses a challenge. We do not lack a reflection so much as we lack presence. We remain the fleshy avatars of a curious and slightly strange God, and the watcher has not seen fit to help us fit in too much. As usual, the solution lies in deceit and misdirection. We need a mask. After a little work, I believe I have found a way to cheat cameras reliably. Those accursed tools merely capture light through a lens, so I must give them light to process. The good news is that the energy required to produce the image of a single vampire is extremely limited. Sadly, there are obstacles. First, the vampire must be aware they are being photographed to aim the light properly. Second, the projected image may not match the vampire because, again, there is no true self to project for some strange reason. I circumvent the first issue by adding an extremely complex reactive component to the masking spell, one based on the flash a camera needs to produce a good image at night. A strong variance in the lighting will cause a reaction. The second issue is more complex, and the best way I find to handle this difficulty is to save a standard realistic portrait the vampire must identify with. In the first attempts, the results are still blurry and I have to make adjustments in material and complexity. Eventually, I pick electrum as a base component due to the vanity associated with both silver and gold. The resulting enchantments allow me to project not one but 4 different images depending on the vampire's body positioning compared to the camera. It feels a little unnatural and forces the vampire to wear similar clothes or create suspicion, much to Safar's dismay. Fortunately, the canny Hastings finds an easy solution. She orders 12 different pendants and rings bearing the enchantment. She can afford them too. The creation of said enchantments for the hundreds of Accords vampires occupies much of 1872. While time-consuming, the task also puts me in the good graces of Mask and Anaru vampires after I sell the design to the Rosenthal. It also requires me to meet every vampire I create tools for seeing, as they need a firm image of what they currently look like and many have forgotten. I have to paint them first. I meet a lot of people over the next months. Some I even find tolerable. With enough money and goodwill collected for a while, and with the first small flying skiffs shipped out to city masters across North America, the time comes for me to create one such item for myself. The issue is obvious and immediate. I cannot paint myself. Fortunately, I have no need to do so. During the dragon hunt, I challenged the Old One to a painting competition which he beat me handily at. I was allowed to keep his creation, which he casually sneezed on a canvas, and use it as a baseline. It leads my kin to say that I appear sunnier and of an easier disposition and temperament on film than in reality. I refrain from gouging eyes, but I do gouge them on my prices for this affront. While I work on preparing us for the future, I keep an eye on the larger events. Nirari has disappeared again into the maze of history, pursuing his mother and his ambitions. Mask has decided to bind us diplomatically rather than militarily, to Safar's delight and my personal annoyance. I believe we should make them pay for their audacity, but my kin are ever pragmatic, and I cannot begrudge them the wealth that comes with having valuable trading partners. I also managed to purchase many paintings as a result, so not all is lost. I favor Impressionist paintings, but I do find myself acquiring Naturalist paintings, some neoclassical works, so long as it does not depict temples and so long as the denuded butts remain anatomically correct. Romantic and pre-Raphaelite masterpieces come to bring some spice to an ever-growing collection. I find myself less interested by older trends, preferring to capture that zeitgeist of eras I have lived through. This leads to some consternation among my friends. You will need an entire village to host your collection, Jimena remarks at some point. And not a single visitor. I am the only visitor I truly seek to satisfy, and besides, have I not invited you? Fair enough, sister. No one is owed a visit to your little haven. It is just such a shame. Art should be shared, should it not? I grumble some excuses about pedantic commenters and children with grubby fingers and no manners, but I know that she is correct. I believe I will eventually open my collection, but only when I have adequate safety measures, and such is not the case now. And by adequate I mean that both visitors and paintings are safe. The paintings themselves remain quite safe right now. Asterisk. I have a gift for you, I tell Melusan at the inauguration of her new stone apartments. Is it syphilis? I roll my eyes at the cheap jab. If you could catch it you would have it by now. I am referring to a real gift, one that will benefit you and through your status as my faithful minion, me as well. Melusan's suspicion does not ease. We stand in a small, newly opened park surrounded by storied buildings in a renovated part of Chicago. The city is gaining her letter of nobility now that the most defining architectural feature is no longer slum, and we have gathered to celebrate. I reach in my satchel and remove a single dark gem, glowing from an inner fire like an ember under a cloud of ash. The fire specialist's eyes widen with surprise and greed. I feel her aura resonate with the slow pulse of the incandescent piece of jewelry. What is that thing? Where did you find it? The face spheres, of course. I brought gifts for everyone that mattered to me. Thank you, Ariane. And for you as well. You bitch. Dark fire gems help those who prefer their heat shrouded in shadows. I am confident you will find a use for it. I need a new focus. We stare at each other in silence for a minute. She knows I am a very capable crafter myself with access to Scarag expertise. She can do no better on this continent. I am sure someone could help you against just compensation. So you gift me the jewel, but I have to pay to use it. You can sit on it for free. Does that count? We bicker for a while, but I can tell she is most pleased. Asterisk. It does not cost that much money to build a skyship. It does, however, require uniquely skilled workers, hard-to-source materials, and a patented technique. I have achieved monopoly over the world's most coveted arcane technological innovation. For a year, AJourneyOfBlackAndRed heavy industry has achieved worldwide fame. Journalists besiege the city. Scientists beg to join our hallowed ranks, bringing with them knowledge and talents. I can dine on a spy every night and never drain from the same neck. More importantly, I become fabulously rich. Even accounting for accordships, taxes, and contributions to several projects for the Accords, $150,000 for a ship will net unprecedented profit when the production cost is barely a tenth of that. And people will pay. Affluent investors, governments and military rush orders to be the first to possess our work. I have no doubt that most of our sales to Europe were eventually dismantled and cracked like nuts for analysis, but Loth and I made a significant effort to use Fey and Virgo runes, and there are very few experts capable of deciphering our work, not to mention understanding it. For now, life is perfect. And so, of course, it was not meant to last. Asterisk. I wait patiently by my office, a hand placed against the nearest illusory window. Those are actually mirrors that reflect the exterior to let in a simulacrum of the sun's light. Any casual visitor will simply see me in my office by day, working normally. Keen observers might notice the blurred nature of the image, and perhaps the slightly wrong angle of the third window from the entrance, which I still have not fixed, though they could blame faulty glass. Anyone asking to open a window will be flatly refused. Nevertheless, the false sunlight is of such a color that I can never truly relax in its presence. A part of me sees the pale radiance and expects to burst into flame, and never mind reason or evidence. As such, I tend to keep the mirrors off while alone. Unfortunately, my next visitors must be given no reason to suspect that I abhor the sun. Unfortunately, our existence has reached the level of urban myth, though we have yet to deplore any loss from it. I should not give them an excuse in any case. 4 men in uniform walk through my front gate at a brisk pace. Their steps carry them through the main entrance with a decisive gait. My quietly competent receptionist Mrs. Starr directs them up and warns me afterward, which is good because my Magna Arca cannot be cast during the day. They bang more than knock on my door, then step in without an invitation. I could do something drastic to them and get away with it, but the truth is that the office is still not technically the heart of my domain, and I have suffered fools here before. I shall suffer these as well. The 4 officers stride in and stop with various expressions of disapproval. So it was true. A woman. I cannot believe the War Office would leave the arming of our nation's military to a mere girl. Not that there is much to equip, Colonel Andrews. Our army's manpower is not even a tenth of France's, I casually observe. But we are getting sidetracked. You have an injunction to deliver, yes? Before we begin, I would like to give you one last chance to do what is right. I do not know whether this is some sort of trickery or you inherited this position and no heir came to contest it. You must listen to reason. The sky ship is no less important to the development of our nation and the industrial revolution we find ourselves in than the cotton gin, the steam engine, the railroad, and many other innovations have been over the past century. Manufactories now occupy a lot of our workforce because we have wisely protected it from the predation of the old world with reasonable tariffs and other adapted measures. The skyship gives us a chance to compete on the global scale against those who have occupied the arena since its inception. I beg you to reconsider the export of this strategic resource to countries that have done little to deserve such boons. Countries that, I may add, are even now peeling off the hulls idle designed to get at the secret marrow. Do not squander such a treasure. I was going to let my guest handle it, but I believe a small precision is in order. Correction. What I have is first and foremost mine. I sit back down in my comfortable chair, doing my best not to claw my desk surface off as it is quite expensive. Before the officers can react to my outburst, I ring a little bell I have ready. I would have normally done without, but my guest insisted that it was no sign of disrespect. A moment later, a dark-haired, handsome man in an exquisitely tailored suit and a winning smile crosses the threshold. While the soldiers' uniforms are a little crumpled, the newcomer is so neat his appearance is almost surreal. From his pomaded hair to the flawlessly polished shoes, even a maniac would be hard-pressed to find a single flaw. "Gentlemen, hello," he says. "I am Isaac Rosenthal of the Rosenthal Consortium, Banks, and Legal Services. It has come to my attention that you are to produce a requisition order. Let us see it. If you please." He snatches the wrinkled envelope from off of the officer's stunned hands and opens it with ceremony. His brow wrinkles while he reads the official document. Soon, he toots under his breath. The officers do not speak, and for good reason. The asset grab they were sent to perform was decided at the highest level and by people I never suspected of treachery. Grant, you devil, I trusted you. I even got you promoted. I soothed the anguish in my heart by watching sweat pearl on the officer's skin. They came in expecting resistance, I am sure. Threats. Grandstanding. I bypassed all that by calling upon the last option. I brought in a lawyer. They should not have messed with my property. As expected, I see several issues with this requisition order, and I regret to tell you that they are as I expected. First, we are not a belligerent state. Thus begins a litany of complaints that lasts for a good 10 minutes, a remarkable achievement considering the order itself is merely 2 pages long. Isaac finishes with a nice touch. And last but not least, a requisition order may not cover patents, plans, and contracts as you seem to believe. I admit to knowing in advance the broad lines of this order, though I hoped you might have reconsidered this foolish endeavor, and would like to present you this executive order signed by Governor Spencer himself rescinding your permit to seize my client's property. If I understand properly, all of those are meaningless documents disputing everyone's legitimacy and mandate in general. I care not, so long as we block their attempt. Unfortunately, it also means that we will have to trigger a certain operation early. Asterisk. My little treacle tart. What brings you here in my humble abode? Hello, Nami. I am on my way to see Isaac, and I wanted to use this opportunity to bring you a gift. A gift? How precious. What manner of gift? Do you have your book around? You know I do, sweet thing. You asked me in your latest letter, did you not? I am just confirming. You will need quick access. Stop titillating me. What is it that you believe the experience will be worth it? A potion. A memory potion made by a servant of the Court of Darkness. It will work on you. A memory? Whose? Mine. It will not be as impactful as the genuine article, but I believe that given your love of dancing and new experiences, it shall still satisfy you. And who will be dancing? The old one. Asterisk. The world is changing fast. Technology carries it, but the rest follows. population leaves the countryside to glut the outskirts of town, feeding their flesh and labor to the fires of industry. Alcoholism runs rampant, and with it tax evasion and corruption become the norm. The victors devour the vanquished. The vanquished blame devil worshippers for their defeat, rewriting history to fit the agenda of the Intergrist party. The persecution of anyone suspected of magic becomes routine in the South, while authorities either turn a blind eye or stand complicit. As a result, white and red cabal recruitment are at an all-time high. Perhaps my time in the fairy world has given me a sense of perspective, or perhaps history is accelerating. In any case, recent developments challenge the way we act and evolve in society. Safar, Isaac, and Constantine take to it like fishes to water. One wields the law, the second wields finance, and the third influence to achieve what armies could not. We are now in 1873, and I have not had to wield my Magna Arca to solve issues in 2 years. I still used it, I just did not have to. It is a strange new world we are leading to in this end of a century. Magic has returned to the forefront after being trimmed and unveiled by the purging blaze of enlightenment, and yet rather than wonder or fear, it is dogmatic hatred and bleak resignation that celebrate its rise. It has all become so very normal. Standard. Taxed and regulated according to well-defined laws. There are even chartered trinket shops for the discerning customers now, and alchemy shops pop out selling pimple removers and birth control elixirs of women wearing shawls so as not to be recognized. All those challenges require new solutions, and it is Isaac I meet to keep control of my ships. The current administration has proven unable to keep their office clear of corruption despite our assistance. We face an endemic issue, so like all such problems we shall ride the wave instead of fighting it, the banker says as we watch out the window of his New York office. Will they not lash out when they figure out someone operated from the shadows? There will be no proof, just a succession of unfortunate events. Remember, we are not intimidating your foes. We are replacing them. I am ready to sign on those authorizations. I know. The fireworks begin tomorrow. And when do they stop? Isaac's smile could not be more savage, an unsettling sign on a face of one usually so composed. When we are done. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. A tidal wave sweeps across the financial landscape, a terrible event that sinks many rickety ships, their decks too weak from years of prosperity. The portents were there. Railroad constructions had boomed after the war with much money tied up in risky, illiquid ventures. The fires in Chicago and Boston put a strain on national reserves. To slow down the rampant inflation, the government raises interest rates and thus the cost of debt, punishing the typically indebted farmers. And then it happens. J. Cook & Company, a major actor of the banking establishment, finds itself unable to market several $1 million worth of Northern Pacific Railways bonds. There's much to finance but the money to do so is too scarce. In September '73, the company's unfortunate financial situation is revealed via a series of reports. The same month, the company declares bankruptcy. The fall of the giant creates ripples, a cascading effect that culminates in the closure of the New York Stock Exchange for several weeks. Most of the railroad companies go bust. The construction of new railroads stops due to a lack of financing. Unemployment explodes while the demand for lumber collapses. And then, the cash which the industry was starving for flows again from mysterious actors, the very same who had held back at the height of speculation and saved their profits. Several mysterious consortiums and obscure interest groups gobble up their competitors for a fraction of what they cost a year before. The behemoth, the Leviathan raking the most profit, becomes famous for the Gothic hour that starts its name. The polite yet merciless lawyers they sent to conduct their affairs become known to most as last resort saviors. Many protests are broken peacefully through harsh yet human negotiations, for no one knows better than us that humans should never be backed into a corner. Because of the economic downturn, Hegel successfully asks for a right to export its goods, considering the weak local demand and the need for additional profits. The Secretary of War replaces its negotiators with smoother agents. Lumber prices stop tumbling down as market grows to match the demand. 3 years later, the country has stabilized and we are immeasurably more powerful than when we started. 4 years later, there is a transatlantic flying ship line, Sky Navies, and I have more money to my name than I could possibly ever hope to spend. Tolt continued.